My sister drained my nephew's tuition fund, lied to everyone, then had her lawyer send me a letter claiming I emotionally coerced her after she used Eli's name to scam half the damn family for years. The first time Eli showed me his sketchbook, he looked like he was bracing for criticism. I know it's not, like, good, he mumbled, flipping past the first few pages. But I'm getting better, I swear. I took the book from him gently and turned the pages. What I saw stopped me cold. There were portraits shaded with a depth I couldn't believe came from a 16-year-old, cityscapes that pulsed with energy, and loose charcoal studies that looked like they belonged in a gallery. Eli, I said, handing the book back, this is more than good. This is the kind of stuff people pay to hang on their walls. His cheeks flushed, but I saw a flicker of hope in his eyes. My name is Theo. I'm 39, and I co-own a bistro with my partner, Marcus, here in Charleston, South Carolina. We've been together for 11 years, and between us we've built a life that's solid, comfortable, and, up until recently, quiet. That changed last fall when my sister Helena's marriage fell apart, messily. There was shouting in the driveway. Police showed up twice. Eli had to stay with us for a weekend when things got bad, sleeping on the couch with headphones jammed in just to drown out the tension. One morning, over pancakes, Eli told me he wanted to apply to a renowned international art academy. He was lit up when he talked about it. The classes, the visiting artists, the projects. Then, his face clouded. But it's stupid. It costs more than what mom and dad made in a year even when they weren't trying to kill each other. That's when Marcus looked at me. And I knew he was thinking what I was thinking. That night, we talked for hours. Not just about the money, but what it would mean. What it would cost us. Whether Helena would even accept help. But we kept circling back to the same idea. If we didn't do it, who would? 2 days later, we sat Helena down in her living room. Eli was out at school. She looked wrecked, eyes puffy, hands shaking from whatever new argument she'd had with her soon-to-be ex. We want to fund Eli's education, I said. She blinked at us, stunned. Marcus added, we've set up a fund. $2,000 a month. Tuition, art supplies, anything school-related. It's locked for that purpose. Helena burst into tears. You don't know what this means, she whispered, grabbing my hands. I swear to God, I'll never touch a cent of it unless it's for him. At that moment, I believed her. We all did. It started with a backsplash. Helena posted a photo on Instagram with a caption that read, Mood. Spa day at home #kitchen remodel. The tile was some imported marble-looking thing with gold accents. In the background, I noticed a new coffee maker, one of those four-figure machines baristas drool over. Marcus showed it to me on his phone and said, I thought she was barely making rent. I shrugged, trying to push away the unease. Maybe she got a deal. Maybe she used a tax refund. Maybe it had nothing to do with the fund. Then came the hiking trip to Banff. Mom needed this for her mental health, Eli said when I asked, voice low, eyes darting away. She said it was important for us to reset. I wanted to believe that. I really did. But my gut said otherwise. A few weeks after the Banff photos, Eli came by the bistro after school. He looked tired, not physically, more like emotionally wrung out. She said she's waiting on some documents from the school, he said, swirling his Sprite with the straw. But they emailed me already. Twice. I don't think she even opened it. I frowned. What documents? Enrollment deposit. I got in. I sat down across from him. Wait, you got your acceptance letter? He nodded. A week ago. And she hasn't sent the deposit? Nope. She keeps saying she will. That night, when Marcus went to bed, I pulled out the laptop and logged into the education fund account. I hadn't checked it in months. We set up the automatic transfer and left it alone. It felt cleaner that way, like we were giving support without micromanaging. The balance should have been somewhere around $48,000 by now. It was $1,217. I stared at the screen, willing it to be a mistake. A glitch. A wrong login. But the transaction history told me everything I needed to know. Withdrawals. Dozens of them. $600 here. $1,400 there. One labeled furniture upgrade. Another just said emergency cash. Most had no notes at all. I sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen burning into my eyes, into my stomach. That money was Eli's future. His escape. His one shot at something outside the chaos Helena had drowned him in for the last 2 years. Marcus came out halfway through brushing his teeth and found me frozen at the kitchen island. What happened? I turned the screen toward him. He looked for a moment, then quietly said, call Priya. And that's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was theft. I met Priya at a coffee shop near her office, a quiet place with good Wi-Fi and even better discretion. She was already at a corner table with her laptop open and a large iced latte sweating beside it. I didn't want to believe it, I said, sliding into the seat across from her. But the numbers don't lie. She pulled the printed bank statements from a folder I'd given her and started marking them with a yellow highlighter, her brow furrowed in that focused way she always had when we were in college, back when she used to help me study for accounting. Okay, she said, flipping the pages slowly. Here's what I'm seeing. She turned the screen toward me. Withdrawal spikes align with these timestamps. Now, let's cross-reference her social media posts. I blinked. Seriously. She smirked. I've done this before. She wasn't kidding. On one screen, the fund withdrawals were locked. On the other, Helena's Instagram. New patio set? 2 days after a $2,300 withdrawal. A weekend at a wellness spa? 1 week after a $1,700 cash pull. The fancy new dining chairs she claimed were a steal? Same week as 2 back-to-back ATM visits totaling $900. It didn't take long to see the pattern. She's been bleeding the account dry every time she wanted something, Priya said. She probably counted on you not checking. Most people wouldn't. She promised, I muttered, staring down at my coffee. She cried when we offered to help. Said she'd protect it. Priya's tone softened. She cried because she knew exactly what you needed to hear. I hate saying this, Theo, but your sister's not just struggling. She's stealing. And lying. My throat tightened. It felt like someone had turned the air heavy. Do you think Eli knows? Priya hesitated. I think he suspects. But I doubt he knows how deep it goes. I leaned back, rubbing my face. What do I do? She opened another folder. Inside, she'd already started compiling a full report. Statements, printouts of Helena's posts, withdrawal records, even screen grabs from texts Eli had forwarded to me where Helena kept making excuses about school paperwork delays. You get everything documented, Priya said, before you confront her. If this turns into something legal, you'll need evidence. Legal. The word hit like a cold slap. I wasn't ready to go there. Not yet. I looked at Priya. She's my sister. And Eli's your nephew, she said. And he's the one losing everything. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. She was right. This wasn't just a betrayal. This was war. I picked the cafe on purpose. Not too crowded, but public enough that Helena wouldn't try to make a scene. At least, that's what I hoped. She showed up 10 minutes late, sunglasses on, lipstick perfect, like she hadn't just rerouted her son's entire future into her own checking account. Sorry, she said, sliding into the booth across from me. Traffic was insane. I nodded, calm. Too calm. Thanks for meeting me. I wanted to talk about Eli's school. Her smile tightened. Oh, right. That's still happening, of course. I've just been swamped. You know how it is. I do, I said, pulling a folder from my bag and placing it between us. That's why I came prepared. She looked at it, confused. What's this? Bank records. Withdrawals. Cross-referenced with your social posts. Also, a breakdown of what should be in Eli's fund and what's actually left. The air between us changed instantly. She didn't even open the folder. You went through my accounts, she said, voice rising. Theo, that's a complete violation of privacy. It's not your account, I said evenly. It's Eli's. You were never supposed to have access. We created it to protect his future, not redecorate your living room. She scoffed, loud enough to turn a few heads nearby. Oh, come on. Don't be dramatic. I used some of it to keep us stable. That's not stealing. That's survival. I leaned in. You spent $800 on a mirror. It was on clearance, she snapped. Helena, there's barely $1,000 left. That fund should have had nearly 50 grand by now. You told Eli the paperwork was delayed. Meanwhile, you're hiking in Banff and posting pictures of $30 smoothies. Her eyes narrowed, her voice dripping with defensiveness. Do you even understand what I've been through? I'm raising a child alone, trying to stay sane. Those trips, those upgrades, they were for Eli's benefit. A better environment helps him stay calm. Mental health is important, or do you not believe in that now? You gutted his education fund, I said, my voice dropping. You sabotaged the one thing that might have given him a way out of all this. You think sending him off to some art school is going to solve everything? She hissed. What about being present? What about having a mother who's not broken into 1,000 pieces? You want to talk about being broken? I said, finally letting the frustration rise. He's 16 and already doesn't believe in stability. You taught him that. And now, the one thing he allowed himself to hope for, you're flushing it away. She stood up abruptly, her chair screeching against the tile. You don't get to judge me. Life hasn't exactly handed me the same silver platter it gave you. Now everyone was staring. I stood too, but didn't raise my voice. Then maybe you shouldn't have taken the one thing that wasn't yours. She grabbed her purse, jaw clenched. You're going to regret this. I watched her storm out. But for the first time, I didn't feel guilty. Only tired. And very, very clear on what needed to happen next. I found Eli behind the mural wall he'd been painting all summer, a community project with the city that paid modestly, but gave him a way to breathe. His clothes were speckled in paint, his curls tucked under a bandana. He looked older than 16 right then. Tired in a way no teenager should be. He smiled when he saw me. Hey, Uncle Theo, you bringing snacks or bad news? I didn't smile back. Just said quietly, we need to talk. We sat on a bench nearby, still within view of the half-finished mural. I didn't draw it out. I didn't sugarcoat it. I told him everything. The missing money. The fake explanations. The confrontation at the cafe. Every ugly detail. He didn't say a word the whole time. Just stared straight ahead, his hands loosely clasped in his lap. When I finished, I braced for tears. Or yelling. Or denial. Instead, he said quietly, "She took it, didn't she?" I kind of knew. I looked at him. "Why didn't you say anything?" He shrugged. "Because I thought if I admitted it, it would make it more real. And if it was real, then that meant my dream was dead." I felt something in my chest break for him. Then he turned to me and asked, "Can I live with you and Marcus?" No hesitation. No pause. Just the quiet voice of a kid who was done pretending. "Of course," I said, already pulling out my phone to start making calls. Later that night, after we got him settled into the guest room, Helena's name lit up my phone. Then again. And again. I didn't answer. But the messages started flowing in, not just from her. My Aunt Diane texted, "What did you do to your sister? She says you're threatening her." Cousin Paul chimed in, "You're being dramatic. It's just money. Family works things out." Apparently, Helena was calling everyone, spinning her own version, telling people I'd turned on her, that I was jealous, controlling, manipulative. Some believed her. Some didn't. The family started dividing like a cracked windshield, splintering along old, quiet lines that had been there for years. Eli didn't say much. Just helped Marcus set the table, curled up on the couch with a sketchbook later, and asked if he could get a job somewhere to help out. That's when we found his old art supply box. He kept it hidden in his duffel bag. His own savings, maybe $80 in crumpled bills, tucked away for brushes and sketch pads. It was empty. Even that, she'd taken. He didn't cry. But the way he stared at the box, that hollow disbelief, was worse. That night, we made a silent vow. We'd get it all back. Starting now. The first envelope came 3 days later. Cream-colored, formal, and smelling faintly like perfume, as if that might disguise the garbage inside. Helena's lawyer had sent a demand letter, claiming I had emotionally coerced her into a financial arrangement and was now creating undue harm to her reputation and stability. They wanted a repayment of all prior contributions. Marcus read it twice, then tossed it on the kitchen counter like it was covered in mold. She has no case. Just a nerve. I sent a copy to Priya, who called within the hour. "You're going to want to sit down for this," she said. Apparently, while she was double-checking the fund's digital security, Priya found a trail of breadcrumbs, IP logs, device IDs, location flags. Turns out, Helena hadn't just accessed the tuition fund improperly. She had also logged into my main bank account. Not once. Not twice. 5 times. "She used your saved credentials," Priya said. "Likely from that time you helped her pay bills and logged in from her laptop. She must have saved the info and waited. That shifted everything. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a criminal offense." I went quiet for a moment. "Do I need to call the police?" "You need to report identity theft," she said. "Now. And not just for your protection. For Eli's." The next few days blurred. We filed reports, froze accounts, set up fraud alerts. Marcus and I took turns answering Eli's questions as best we could, all while trying to keep his world from collapsing more than it already had. Then came the calls, not just from Helena. From people we hadn't spoken to in years. Cousin Dana confessed she'd loaned Helena $4,000 for Eli's art contest trip to Paris, which never existed. Uncle Lynn had co-signed a personal loan she defaulted on, also for Eli's academy entrance coaching. She'd even hit up Marcus's sister, saying Eli needed special tutoring before his portfolio review. Every lie traced back to one thing: Eli's future. She had used his name like a discount code, over and over again. By the end of the week, I had a spreadsheet full of victim names, dates, and fabricated reasons. And the worst part? Most of them believed her. Not at first. But once they saw the evidence, the bank records, the screenshots, the spell broke. The case file grew thicker every day. We met with a detective from the Financial Crimes Division, who reviewed everything. She didn't mince words. "You're looking at fraud, identity theft, possible embezzlement. We've seen this before: family exploitation. And it's ugly." Eli sat in the corner of the conference room, holding his sketchbook but not drawing. He was quiet the whole time, until we stood up to leave. "Will she go to jail?" he asked. The detective looked at him gently. "That's up to the district attorney." He nodded. "Okay." His voice didn't shake. He was ready. The first message came late one evening, just as Marcus and I were cleaning up from dinner. It was a Facebook DM from my cousin Jenna, someone I hadn't heard from in years. "Hey Theo, I heard about what's going on with Helena. If it helps, she took money from me too. Said it was for some urgent art contest fees for Eli. $25,000. I read it twice. Marcus looked up from the sink. "Another one?" I nodded slowly. "This one stings more than the others. She's family. The next day, an aunt on my dad's side, Aunt Rosalie called out of the blue. She sounded hesitant at first, then relieved once I assured her she wasn't bothering me. She said it was a short-term thing, Aunt Rosalie explained. She cried on the phone, Theo. She said Eli would lose his shot at art school if I didn't co-sign. I wanted to help. You know how much I love that boy. I swallowed hard. Did she ever pay anything back? She let out a bitter laugh. Not a cent. And now I'm stuck with debt collectors. Bit by bit, the story unraveled, not just from strangers, but from people Helena had leaned on for years. Each new call or message followed the same pattern: emotional appeal, urgent lie, Eli's name held out like a donation box. And the more people came forward, the less Helena could deny. Eli listened to every story, sometimes quietly, sometimes with clenched fists, but always with that same haunted look, like he was watching his whole life be redefined. One afternoon, after another long call with a friend who'd loaned Helena emergency travel funds, Eli came into the kitchen holding a pile of printed scholarship forms. I want to try, he said simply. I want to earn this. You don't have to prove anything, Marcus said softly. I know, Eli said, but I want to. I don't want the next part of my life to be built on lies. We sat with him that night, helping him fill out the first round of applications. Some were for grants, others for competitions. A few required essays, and he poured himself into them like he was scraping every ounce of hurt out and putting it on the page. The next day, he biked down to the library and came back with even more forms. Helena had torn down every pillar he thought was stable. But Eli? He was rebuilding, brick by honest brick. When the detectives called to say charges were being filed, I didn't feel triumph. Just a strange, shaky calm, like the ground had finally stopped moving. They found everything. And I mean everything. Turns out Helena hadn't just drained Eli's tuition fund and conned half the family. She had gone further, creating entire fake loan accounts, including one opened in Eli's name. A student loan for an accelerated international program that didn't exist. And somehow, she had gotten his social security number. We still don't know exactly when. Maybe it was one of those nights she claimed to be organizing his paperwork. Maybe it was back when he needed a passport for a school trip, and she insisted on handling the forms. Either way, she had it. And she used it. The DA didn't hesitate. Financial fraud. Identity theft. Embezzlement. The case was clear, the paper trail airtight, the victim, a minor, undeniable. And the piece de resistance? Helena had kept notes. Detailed ones. Notebooks full of budgets, repayment plans she never followed through on, and even a list of people she planned to approach next for Eli's dreams. One entry read, maybe pitch the he's gifted angle harder. People respond better when it's emotional. She kept everything in a filing box marked tax stuff. It was all found when they executed a search warrant. In court, her attorney tried spinning it as mental exhaustion. Said Helena was overwhelmed by the burden of single motherhood. But the prosecutor laid out the timeline, the deliberate nature of the withdrawals, the fabricated invoices, and when they held up the application Helena had filed in Eli's name, even the judge flinched. Eli sat beside me the whole time. He wore a simple black button-down. No sketchbook. Just a folded sheet of paper in his jacket pocket, his acceptance letter to the art academy, now deferred until the scholarship process finished. When Helena took the stand, she looked nothing like the confident woman who used to post about manifesting positivity and emotional healing. She looked small. Not remorseful, just cornered. When she saw Eli in the courtroom, she looked away. The sentencing was swift. 3 years in state prison, with restitution payments to each verified victim. Eli's trust fund, what was left of it, would be frozen and reorganized by court order. Anything Helena paid back would be prioritized toward that. And maybe the biggest shift? Eli's dad showed up. He sat in the back row of the courtroom, jaw clenched the whole time. After the hearing, he asked to speak to Eli privately. When they returned, Eli's eyes were glassy, but he didn't look angry. Just steady. He's filing for full custody, Eli told me. He's not perfect, but he's furious. Says he didn't know the half of what Mom was doing. I nodded. And what do you want? Eli looked at me. I want to move forward. 6 months later, Eli stood on the steps of the San Francisco Art Institute, acceptance letter in hand, and that familiar nervous smile tugging at his face. He'd gotten in. Officially. This time, with a full merit scholarship, a housing grant, and a new, court-protected trust fund managed by an outside custodian. No loopholes. No family access. Just him, his future, and the safety net he'd earned. When we helped him move into the dorms, he unpacked his sketchbooks first. He lined them up on the shelf like trophies. Some of them were dog-eared and torn, pages smudged from late nights and hard memories. But he kept every single one. This, he said, holding up the oldest one, is the one I drew in the night after I found the fund was empty. He smiled at it. I'm not throwing it out. It reminds me what I came from. Back home, things had shifted in ways we couldn't predict. Family members who once sided with Helena now reached out quietly. Some called just to say they were sorry. Others came with casseroles, and I didn't know it was that bad texts. We didn't blame them. Not exactly. Helena had always been 2 steps ahead of people, her lies carefully layered with just enough truth to sound plausible. But now, with her conviction public and her actions exposed, the family started piecing themselves back together. It wasn't fast or perfect, but it was honest. At Thanksgiving, we hosted dinner for the first time in years. Eli sat at the head of the table, paint still under his nails from an internship at a local gallery. He told stories about professors who pushed him, classes that challenged him, and an installation he was planning for spring. "Are you happy?" Marcus asked him after everyone left. Eli looked around at the quiet kitchen, the empty plates, the soft hum of the dishwasher. "Yeah," he said. "I think I am." Helena's name came up less and less. When it did, it was usually from someone referencing the case, a cautionary tale, or from Eli himself, in those rare quiet moments where grief and betrayal still rose up. "She didn't just steal money," he told me once. "She stole time, trust, but I'm not giving her anything else." He meant it. Now, his days were filled with art critiques and campus events. He worked part-time at the gallery and picked up tutoring shifts on weekends. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. And Marcus and I? We watched from a distance. Proud. Steady. Exactly what he'd needed all along. Because at the end of it all, Eli wasn't just rebuilding his future. He was painting it, brushstroke by brushstroke, on his own terms.